I, 32, female, have been married to my husband Jack, 34, male, for 5 years now. Overall, we've had a solid relationship. We're good at talking things through, we support each other's goals, and we've always had each other's backs. It's not perfect, but we work well as a team. I work as a management consultant, so part of my job involves traveling every now and then. It's not super often, but when I do travel, it's usually for about 1 to 2 weeks at a time, depending on the client and the project. Jack has always been supportive of my career. He knows how much it means to me, and I've never really felt like my job caused any issues between us. If anything, I've always appreciated how he encourages me to chase promotions and bigger roles. The one person who doesn't seem to share that enthusiasm is my mother-in-law, Sandra, 60, female. From day one, she's made it clear that she doesn't really approve of my career path. She's very old school and traditional. She was a stay-at-home mom her entire life and takes a lot of pride in raising Jack and his sister. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that, but she seems to think that's the only right way for a woman to live. Whenever I talk about work or mention a promotion, she always throws in some passive-aggressive comment about how I should slow down and focus on family. Or she'll ask when we're planning to have kids in this really pointed way. Jack usually tries to defend me, but he's also someone who avoids conflict when he can. So instead of actually shutting her down, he'll just change the subject or awkwardly laugh it off. It's frustrating. But I also understand he's in a tough spot still. I wish he was a little more direct sometimes. Despite all this, I've really tried to build a decent relationship with Sandra. I've invited her out for lunch more times than I can count. I send her thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays, write her thank you notes, and I always try to include her in our lives. I even learned how to cook some of Jack's childhood favorites using her recipes, hoping that might help her warm up to me. But no matter what I do, I get the sense that she just sees me as not good enough for her son. To make matters worse, she constantly brings up Jack's ex-girlfriend, Leslie, 33, female. I've never met someone so obsessed with their child's ex. According to her, Leslie was such a sweet domestic girl who would have made a wonderful mother to her future grandchildren. Jack dated Leslie back in college for a couple of years. From what little he said, they broke up because they had different goals in life and didn't see a long-term future together. He rarely talks about her and doesn't seem to have any lingering feelings. But Sandra? You'd think she was still holding out hope they'd get back together one day. Anyway, about a month ago, I had to go on a 2-week business trip. One of our clients was going through a big restructuring project and I needed to be on site to help guide them through it. The timing wasn't great. Jack had just sprained his ankle playing basketball with some of his friends. It wasn't a serious injury, just a bad sprain. But he was limping around and had to keep his foot elevated for a while. I offered to delay my trip, but he insisted it wasn't a big deal. He told me he'd be fine and could handle things at home, especially since I wasn't going to be gone that long. Plus, this project was a big opportunity for me and could lead to a promotion, so we both agreed I should go. While I was away, I made a point to call him every night, just quick check-ins to see how he was doing, how the ankle felt, whether he needed anything. He always seemed fine. He mentioned that his mom had been dropping by occasionally with food, which I thought was nice of her. She may drive me crazy, but I appreciate her helping out while I was gone. What he didn't mention was that Sandra had also invited Leslie over to our house. Not just to say hi or drop off groceries, she invited Leslie to stay at our house to help take care of Jack while I was gone. And I only found out about this the hard way. I ended up finishing the project 3 days ahead of schedule and thought it would be a nice surprise to come home early. I missed Jack, and I was honestly just excited to relax after the stressful work trip. Well, the surprise was definitely on me. I walked into our house and immediately smelled something cooking. I assumed Jack had ordered takeout or maybe made some pasta or something simple. But when I stepped into the kitchen, I was absolutely floored. There was Leslie standing at the stove, stirring a pot of sauce like she owned the place. In my kitchen, in my apron. I just stood there for a second, completely stunned. Then I noticed that her purse was on the counter, and when I walked down the hall, I saw her toiletries neatly arranged in our bathroom. Her clothes were hanging in the guest room closet, and it honestly looked like she had just moved in for the week. Jack was on the couch with his foot propped up watching TV, and the look on his face when he saw me walk in was pure panic. Like a deer caught in headlights, he looked guilty, shocked, and kind of speechless. He quickly scrambled to introduce me to Leslie, who looked incredibly awkward but tried to be polite. She apologized for the confusion and said that Sandra had called her saying Jack needed help while his career-obsessed wife was off abandoning him again. Apparently, Sandra had made it sound like I travel constantly, barely take care of Jack, and had left him completely helpless. Leslie said she originally just planned to swing by with some groceries and check in on him. But Sandra convinced her to stay and help take care of the house properly. And the wild part? Leslie said she thought Jack knew and was fine with it. According to her, she assumed everything had been discussed between us already. I was furious, but I didn't want to completely explode in front of her, especially if she really didn't know what was going on. So I took a deep breath, kept my tone as calm as I could, and thanked her for helping Jack out. But told her that now that I was home, she didn't need to stay any longer. To her credit, she seemed genuinely embarrassed. She apologized again and said she didn't realize Sandra hadn't cleared it with either of us. She packed up her stuff and was gone within the hour. Once Leslie left, Jack and I sat down for what ended up being one of the most tense and emotionally draining conversations we've ever had. He swore up and down that he had no idea his mom was going to invite Leslie to stay at our house. According to him, Leslie had just shown up at the door one afternoon with a bag of groceries, saying Sandra had called and told her Jack needed help. He said he was caught off guard but didn't want to be rude, so he let her in and figured she'd stay for a little while, maybe help out with a meal or two, run a quick errand. But then somehow that snowballed into her staying overnight and setting up shop in the guest room. Jack admitted that things got weird pretty quickly, but he didn't know how to handle it without making everything worse. He kept insisting that he didn't want to upset me during such an important business trip, especially when I had worked so hard to prepare for it. So instead of being upfront, he just kept it to himself. Every time we talked on the phone, he avoided bringing it up because he thought Leslie would be gone before I got back, and I'd never even know. Obviously, that plan backfired in a major way. I was hurt, not just because he didn't tell me, but because the whole thing felt like a huge breach of trust. We talk every single day when I'm away, and I felt blindsided walking into my own house to that scene, but I could tell he was genuinely embarrassed and remorseful. He kept apologizing and said he never meant for it to go that far. And honestly, the more we talked, the more obvious it became that Sandra had completely manipulated the situation. And not just him, but Leslie too. Still, it didn't make it any easier to swallow. I felt disrespected, not only as his wife, but as someone who's worked really hard to maintain peace in the family. Even when it's been one-sided, and Sandra, oh, she was the real cherry on top. The very next day, she showed up unannounced like she often does, using the spare key we gave her for actual emergencies. Like, say, a fire or a medical situation. She clearly wasn't expecting to see me standing there. She walked in, looking around, almost confused, like she expected to find Leslie still there, playing Florence Nightingale. When she saw me instead, her face dropped. No, "Hi, honey," no warm welcome home, just disappointment. I didn't waste any time. I asked her straight out why she thought it was okay to invite Jack's ex-girlfriend into our home without checking with either of us. She didn't even try to pretend she hadn't done it. She went full-blown lecture mode, saying I was a terrible wife for abandoning her poor injured son while I went off playing businesswoman like my career was more important than my husband. She actually used the phrase "a real woman," as in a real woman would have cancelled her trip and stayed home to care for her man. According to her, Leslie had shown more devotion in a few days than I had in years. She said I should be grateful for the example Leslie set, and that the whole situation was exactly what I deserved for being so selfish. She even suggested Jack should reconsider who he married. At that point, I was fuming, but before I could respond, Jack jumped in, and thank God he did. He didn't just stand up for me, he laid into her in a way I've honestly never seen before. He told her that he was the one who encouraged me to go on the trip, that he was fine. It was a minor sprain and I hadn't abandoned him at all. He said what she did was completely out of line and disrespectful to our marriage. Then he demanded she return the spare key. She looked completely stunned, like she couldn't believe he was taking my side. She tried to shift the narrative, said she was just trying to help, that Jack needed support, that she didn't mean any harm. But Jack wasn't buying it. He told her flat out that she owed both of us a sincere apology if she ever wanted to be welcomed in our home again. That's when she totally flipped. She got defensive, accused me of brainwashing him, said I was turning him against his own mother, and that she couldn't believe he was treating her like this after all she'd done for him. Then she burst into tears and stormed out, slamming the door behind her like a teenager. That was a week ago, and since then, she's been blowing up Jack's phone, texting, calling, leaving voicemails. Some of the messages are tearful and apologetic, but only directed at him. Not once has she tried to apologize to me. Other times she swings in the opposite direction, accusing me of stealing him away from her, saying I'm ruining the family, telling other relatives that I'm the reason Jack won't see her. Which isn't even true. Jack made the decision on his own that he doesn't want to speak to her again until she offers a real apology to both of us. And that's not coming from me pressuring him. He's just genuinely angry and disappointed in her. But now, extended family members have started weighing in. A few aunts and cousins have called him, saying Sandra's getting older and she meant well, and family is all we have and we should just forgive her already. I know they mean well, but they weren't there. They didn't see how vicious and manipulative she was. They don't get how over the line this all was. Jack has been solidly in my corner through this whole thing, which I appreciate more than I can even express. He reassures me every day that I didn't do anything wrong, that he supports me and believes in what I do. But I can see how much it's hurting him to be at odds with his mom. He loves her, flaws and all. And even though she crossed a major line, he's still her son. That kind of emotional tug of war isn't easy for anyone. And honestly, I'm torn. I don't want to be the reason Jack stays estranged from his mother. I don't want to be the wedge in their relationship. But at the same time, I don't think I should have to just sweep this under the rug and pretend everything's fine. What she did was invasive, disrespectful, and mean. She knew exactly what she was doing when she called Leslie. She's not some confused old lady. She's calculated and stubborn, and she deliberately tried to sabotage my marriage. So now I'm sitting here with all these questions swirling around in my head. Was I wrong to go on that trip when Jack was hurt? Should I have stayed home even though he told me he was fine? Am I being too harsh, expecting a full apology, not just one directed at Jack? Should I be more understanding of Sandra's traditional values, even when they totally clash with how we live our lives? More than anything, I just want to know, am I overreacting? Or was this as big of a violation as it feels like? Any advice or outside perspective would really help right now. I feel so lost in all of this. Update 1. First of all, thank you all for the overwhelming support and advice. I really wasn't expecting this post to get so much attention, but reading your comments has helped me feel less crazy about the whole situation. After reading your responses, Jack and I had another long talk about boundaries with his mother going forward. We both agree that what she did was completely inappropriate and that we need to be united in how we handle the situation. Jack has been amazing through all of this, consistently putting our marriage first and standing up to his mother, which I know isn't easy for him. Yesterday, Sandra showed up at our door unannounced again. This time, Jack answered and made it clear that she wasn't welcome inside until she was ready to sincerely apologize to both of us, especially me. Sandra started crying right there on our doorstep, saying she felt replaced and forgotten since Jack got married. She said she was just trying to help in the only way she knew how and didn't understand why everyone was so upset with her. Jack held firm and told her that regardless of her intentions, inviting his ex-girlfriend to stay in our home while I was away was a deliberate attempt to undermine our marriage, and he wouldn't tolerate anyone disrespecting his wife, not even his mother. He suggested she take some time to reflect on her actions and their impact, and when she was ready to have an adult conversation and offer a genuine apology, we could talk about rebuilding our relationship. Sandra left in tears again, but this time she seemed more sad than angry. Jack was pretty shaken up afterwards. He's never had to stand up to his mom like this before. I think the reality that her actions have serious consequences is finally starting to sink in for both of them. I also learned something interesting from Jack's sister, Emily. Apparently, Sandra has been in contact with Leslie on and off for years, occasionally meeting up for lunch and keeping tabs on her life. Emily thinks Sandra never really accepted our marriage and has been holding on to the hope that Jack and Leslie would somehow reconnect. This puts things in a whole new perspective and makes me wonder if this emergency care situation was actually a calculated move rather than just Sandra's misguided attempt to help. As for Leslie, Jack reached out to her with my knowledge to apologize for putting her in such an awkward position. She apparently had no idea about the full situation and felt terrible about it. She told Jack that Sandra had painted a very different picture, making it sound like Jack and I were having serious marital problems because of my workaholic tendencies. and that he was struggling to recover from his injury alone. Leslie said she never would have agreed to come if she had known the truth, and she apologized for stepping into our home without checking with both of us first. I'm still processing all of this, but I feel more confident in our decision to establish firm boundaries with Sandra. Jack and I are presenting a united front, and I'm grateful for that. We've agreed that if and when Sandra apologizes sincerely, we can slowly work on rebuilding trust, but things will never go back to how they were before. No more emergency key, no more unannounced visits, and any disrespect towards me or our marriage will result in immediate consequences. On a positive note, Jack's ankle is completely healed now, and I got the promotion I was working toward on that business trip. We're celebrating with a weekend getaway next week, just the two of us, phones turned off. I think we've earned some peaceful time together after all this drama. Update 2. The situation with Sandra has taken a dramatic turn. 2 days ago, Jack's sister Emily called to tell us that Sandra had been hospitalized after fainting at home. She's physically fine. The doctor said it was likely due to stress and slightly elevated blood pressure, but she's been keeping Emily and the rest of the family busy with constant calls and complaints about her terrible treatment by us. Jack went to visit her in the hospital, and I offered to go with him, but he thought it might be better to talk to her alone first. According to Jack, as soon as he arrived, Sandra burst into tears and started talking about how she might not have much time left and how she only wanted to see her son happy with the right kind of woman. Even in her hospital bed, she couldn't help but take jabs at me and my career. When Jack tried to explain why her actions were inappropriate, she kept interrupting him, saying he was attacking a sick old woman and that he was choosing me over his own flesh and blood. Jack said the conversation went in circles, with Sandra refusing to acknowledge that what she did was wrong and continuing to insist that she was just looking out for his best interests. What happened next still has me in shock. Apparently, Sandra had invited Leslie to visit her in the hospital too, without telling Jack she would be there. Leslie showed up while Jack was still there, creating an incredibly awkward situation. Sandra immediately brightened up and started talking about how wonderful it was that the two people she cares about most were there with her. Jack said he was furious but didn't want to cause a scene in the hospital. He politely greeted Leslie, who looked mortified, and then told his mother he had to leave. Before he left, Sandra said loud enough for several nurses to hear that she was changing her will to leave everything to Leslie, since she's the only one who truly cares about me in my time of need. When Jack got home, he was visibly upset. He said he finally sees the full extent of his mother's manipulation and that he needs some distance from her for his own mental health. He called Emily to fill her in on what happened, and Emily confirmed that Sandra had been making similar dramatic statements to other family members, claiming that I've stolen her son and that she's all alone in the world now. The most surprising part of all this is that Leslie actually reached out to me directly afterward. She got my number from Emily with Jack's permission and called to apologize for the whole situation. She explained that Sandra had been calling her daily since the original incident, painting herself as the victim and saying that Jack was being controlled by his career-obsessed wife, me. Leslie said she initially felt sorry for Sandra and agreed to visit her in the hospital, not knowing Jack would be there or that Sandra was trying to create another uncomfortable situation. Leslie was surprisingly kind and understanding. She said she's known Sandra long enough to recognize her manipulative tactics and that she wanted me to know she has no interest in interfering in our marriage. She even revealed that one of the reasons she and Jack broke up in college was because she couldn't deal with Sandra's constant meddling and expectations. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, and I have to say, I actually like her. Under different circumstances, we might even be friends. Jack has decided to take a complete break from communicating with his mother for at least a few weeks. He sent her a text explaining that her behavior at the hospital was the last straw and that he needs time to process everything. He's asked Emily to be the point of contact for Sandra's medical updates, but otherwise he doesn't want to hear from or about her for a while. The family is divided on this. Some relatives think we're being too harsh on a sick old woman, while others who have experienced Sandra's manipulation firsthand are supportive of Jack's decision to create distance. It's a mess, but Jack and I are staying united through it all. I've suggested that Jack consider talking to a therapist to help process his complicated feelings about his mother. Growing up with someone who uses manipulation, guilt, and emotional blackmail as parenting tools leaves lasting effects, and I think professional guidance might help him navigate this difficult time. He's considering it, which I see as a positive step. As for me, I'm doing my best to support Jack without pushing my own agenda. This is his mother and his relationship to manage, though it affects me too. I'm trying to be patient and understanding while also maintaining the boundaries we've set together. I never imagined my mother-in-law's problems would escalate to this level, but here we are. I'm grateful for Jack's unwavering support through all of this. Our marriage feels stronger than ever, despite, or maybe because of, these challenges. Update 3. The situation with Sandra has completely exploded, and things have taken a turn I never could have predicted. 2 days ago, Jack received a large envelope in the mail containing old photos of him and Leslie from when they were dating in college, along with a handwritten letter from Sandra. The letter was essentially a multi-page guilt trip, detailing all the sacrifices Sandra had made for Jack throughout his life and how heartbroken she was that he would abandon her for a woman who doesn't even want to give her grandchildren. There were also some disturbing comments about how she had always considered Leslie to be her real daughter-in-law, and how she had been patiently waiting for Jack to come to his senses. Jack was visibly disturbed by the letter and decided it was time to have a serious conversation with his sister Emily about their mother's behavior. They met for coffee while I was at work, and Emily revealed something that changed everything. Sandra had apparently been doing this kind of thing for years. Not just with Jack, but with Emily too. According to Emily, when she first started dating her now husband David, Sandra had repeatedly invited Emily's high school ex-boyfriend to family events without telling her, made comments about how Emily and her ex were meant to be together, and even tried to arrange accidental meetings between them. Emily had never told Jack about this because she didn't want to damage his relationship with their mother, especially since Sandra seemed to favor Jack and was less manipulative with him. Emily also revealed that their father, who passed away 10 years ago, had actually been on the verge of divorcing Sandra shortly before his heart attack because of her controlling and manipulative behavior. Apparently, Sandra had systematically isolated him from his friends and family over the years, always playing the victim when he tried to establish independence. Emily had found letters their father had written but never sent, detailing his unhappiness in the marriage and his plans to leave. This information hit Jack hard. He started recalling incidents from his childhood that he had normalized but now recognized as manipulation. Sandra pretending to be sick when he wanted to go to friends' houses, guilt-tripping him when he chose college activities over visiting home, subtly undermining every girlfriend he ever had. He realized that what we're experiencing now isn't new behavior for Sandra. It's just the first time he's really seeing it clearly. With this new perspective, Jack decided it was time for a direct confrontation. He called Sandra and arranged to meet her at a neutral location, a quiet cafe near her house. He asked me not to come, which I understood. This was something he needed to do alone. When he returned from the meeting, he looked both emotionally drained and somehow relieved. He said he had laid everything out for Sandra, the pattern of manipulation, the inappropriate behavior with Leslie, the disrespect towards me and our marriage, and the newly revealed information from Emily. He told her that he loved her because she was his mother, but he couldn't have a relationship with her unless she acknowledged her behavior and got professional help. Sandra's reaction was apparently explosive. She denied everything, accused Emily of lying about their father, called me a variety of unflattering names, and then played the ultimate card. "If you walk away from me now, don't bother coming back." She told Jack he would be dead to her if he chose to side with me and Emily over her. Jack said he simply stood up, told her he was sorry she felt that way, and left. He said the strangest thing was how calm he felt in that moment, like he was finally free of a weight he didn't even know he was carrying. When he got home, he found that Sandra had already blocked him on all social media and sent messages to several family members claiming that Jack had verbally abused her at the cafe and threatened her. Fortunately, most of the family know Sandra well enough to take her claims with a grain of salt. And those who don't, well, Jack says he's okay with letting them believe what they want for now. The most surprising development came yesterday when Leslie contacted us again. Apparently, after being dragged into this drama repeatedly, she decided to block Sandra's number. In response, Sandra showed up at Leslie's workplace, causing a scene and telling Leslie's co-workers that she was a homewrecker who was trying to steal her son. Security had to escort Sandra out, and Leslie is now considering a restraining order. Jack, Emily, and I met last night to discuss next steps. We're all concerned about Sandra's escalating behavior and her refusal to acknowledge any wrongdoing. Emily has spoken with her mother's doctor about the possibility of a psychological evaluation, but since Sandra is legally competent and not a danger to herself or others in a way that can be proven, there's not much that can be done unless she agrees to seek help voluntarily. For now, Jack has decided to maintain no contact with his mother. He's mourning the relationship he thought they had and coming to terms with who she really is. It's painful to watch, but I'm incredibly proud of how he's handling it, with grace, clarity, and firm boundaries. As for me, I'm supporting Jack through this difficult time while also processing my own feelings about the whole situation. I never wanted to come between Jack and his mother, but I also refuse to be disrespected or manipulated. I believe we're doing the right thing by standing our ground, even though it's undeniably painful. Jack and I are planning to start couples therapy, not because our relationship is in trouble, it's actually stronger than ever, but because we want to make sure we have the tools to navigate this complicated situation in a healthy way. We're also considering moving to a new house in the same city, partly for a fresh start, and partly because Sandra knows where we live and has shown she doesn't respect our boundaries. I never imagined my mother-in-law issues would lead to such a complete family upheaval. But in a strange way, I think this painful process will ultimately lead to healthier relationships for everyone involved, except perhaps for Sandra, who seems determined to remain the victim in her own story. Thank you all for your support throughout this crazy journey. Your advice and encouragement have been invaluable during one of the most challenging periods of our marriage. I'll update again if anything changes. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.